Starting in quarantine without an end in sight, we're bringing to you advice and good conversation from one human to another. This is Sanika and Ria with Armbridge, a podcast we hope to be informative and reflective of the everyday world around us. Thank you for joining us today. It is April 30th. Last week we talked about our hot takes on the music industry, and this week we decided we're going to do things a little bit differently. Chelsea and I thought it would be interesting if we hosted the podcast on our own for 1 week each month and had our own segments with our own guest of choice. So, introducing our very first guest, one of my close friends, Ria.
Hello. So today we're talking about how to live a fulfilling life. Very loaded question. So as I was preparing for this, I asked myself the question, what does a fulfilling life even look like? Because I think that's an important question to ask. And I think the answer lies in what we think a fulfilling day looks like. And so I wanted to start off by asking you, how would you describe a perfect day?
It's very funny doing this all over again because, oh God.
This is our second take.
For those of y'all listening, we had to restart this because we went through some technical difficulties earlier. But, okay, here we go again. What does my perfect, fulfilling day look like?
I'm so fascinated.
I'm sure. For me, I don't like routine much, so I don't know that I have like one ideal day that I want to like repeat forever or whatever, like for whatever amount of time either. But I know it definitely involves balance. Like I know I wouldn't want to just be having fun straight or just like only be working for the entire day. So I think as long as I'm keeping myself interested, not working myself too much, that's a fulfilling day.
Wow, I've never heard that before.
Oh, no, really?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said, although I'm probably guilty of like trying to recreate the perfect day every day, which makes for some bad, I guess just like thoughts, because not every day can be perfect. So if you fail, which you inevitably will, because it's impossible to have like a perfect day, it's impossible to feel like you didn't go wrong somewhere, when really you're trying to do something that isn't real.
What do you mean? Like
perfection, like
right.
Being a perfectionist, it's a very like negative thing almost, which is kind of ironic because you're trying to strive for
like the epitome
perfection,
of positivity, right?
But in the way, because you're trying to be perfect, any imperfect like things in your day,
in quotes, imperfect,
they have a really bad impact on you. I'm using you, but I really mean me, but it's easier to use you.
Don't attack me like that. No, it's cool.
Otherwise it sounds less like a therapy session. And more like I'm just being philosophical.
That's what this podcast is.
Cool,
it's
okay.
just weekly therapy, but it's free. And no one's a professional.
So
no, I get that. Yeah, I think that like if you want to have a fulfilling life, and I think actually no, this kind of goes into the definition of like what you call a fulfilling day anyways. If your life was perfect and if you were creating this hypothetical perfect routine and everything was going smoothly, then there's nothing to fulfill. You're just repeating the same thing over again, right? As I said the first time we recorded, I just finished reading The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F yesterday. And it touched on a lot of the topics we're going to cover today. One of the things that they mentioned was exactly that, like humans thrive on problem solving, but we simultaneously see problems as like a negative thing in our lives. But in order to have a life that's like, that has meaning, that has value, that's not just like empty, you need to have problems, because the only way we add value to our days, the only way we add value to like our experience as a human being is through solving problems.
I think on that note we can get to the next topic, which was kind of the balance we were talking about. And I think you can break up everything you do in a day. You mentioned this during the first take. Into instant gratification and delayed gratification.
Right.
And so I just listed some examples of what those look like. Instant gratification would be things like exercising or like watching TV. And they do have like long-term impacts. Like if you're exercising every day, then you're obviously working towards something. Yeah. But it's also just a time where you're present.
Right. You're like focusing on something immediate.
Yeah. And then you have things like, I think I only wrote down one word for delayed gratification, which is practice. Because that's really all it is, and it doesn't matter what you're practicing. People have like different things they practice. It could be playing a sport, playing an instrument, but these things are just like instruments to the same thing. Like
you're working towards something bigger.
Yeah, they're all just ways to make ourselves feel more happy. And so,
and as I mentioned earlier in the problem solving note, those are like the problems that we're trying to solve. Like, oh, I wish I could do this technique, or like this, those are the things we work.
Some things take more time, and so the things that take more time will be in the delayed gratification thing. Like, and then the things that you can just do every day, of like reading, watching TV, or listening to podcasts. Like, these are things anyone can do. And then, so obviously these are like things you can control, but then you have things you can't control, like literally anything. That's why you can't control it, because I won't be able to name them right now, because they're like,
it hasn't happened. You don't know.
Like, you don't know.
There's going to be a global pandemic. Is there going to be a recession?
Exactly. Like, these are things you can't plan for. And so, I don't know where I was going with that, but there they are.
I think it's a pretty simple concept, straightforward, right? Like,
yeah. Oh, I mentioned this is like a major plug. There's this philosophy podcast that we both listen to. It's called Philosophize This.
Yeah.
It's really good. I'm listening to it. I'm doing it chronologically, and I stopped on Aristotle, and he actually helped me like plan this podcast a bit.
Ooh, interesting.
And so with the instant gratification and delayed gratification,
that's Aristotle.
So Aristotle words it in a different way, which I thought you've probably heard before, but the instant gratification, those tasks are an end, and then the delayed gratification things, those are a means to an end. So that kind of helps look at it in a different way, like you're working towards something bigger in the future.
Hey y'all, this is editing Sanika real quick. After this segment, we decided to take a quick snack break, and while ASMR would have been a lovely addition to this episode for some, I imagine many others would find it just as unwelcome. So, to better your listening experience, I replaced all the eating noises with geese. Don't be alarmed. Alright, thanks. Back to the episode now.
Oh yeah, fruits.
I don't want to make annoying eating sounds. Great break.
ASMR. It's okay, I'll edit it out. You're good.
Maybe don't. No, yeah, I should do that.
Come tune in for the philosophical discussion. Get surprised by the ASMR.
Plus ASMR. You never know which one you're gonna get.
We're unstoppable. We're truly unstoppable.
Who says you can't have everything?
Genres. Exactly.
Okay, back to philosophy.
Yes, ma'am. Okay.
So, where was I?
Aristotle.
Yeah, another Aristotle quote. There's a nice shift. He says, we deliberate not about ends, but about means. So, basically saying that we all want the same thing. We all just want to be happy. We just have different ways of trying to be happy.
Right.
And so, how do you be happy?
I feel like personally, I wouldn't even go far as like being happy.
Okay.
I feel like we could call it happiness, yes, but it's more of like, like somewhere in your conscience, in your intuition, there's like that voice, right? And it's like it knows how you're feeling, even if consciously you're like, I'm fine. It knows something stirring down there, and I think what we tend to call happiness is more of just like that conscience being quiet or like settled.
That's a cool way to put it, yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because I feel like in my happiest moments, that's
There's
how
no
I
like
felt.
nagging feeling at the back of you, right?
Yeah, everything is just like still.
There.
Which is kind of sad because it makes it sound like all the bad moments in your life, they're just like voices everywhere. Like telling you like stop or like you suck. That's kind of a big thing, like especially in our generation, like having anxiety, even if it's just like on the back burner, it's still there.
Right.
And especially now when there's no distractions, it's a good thing, but it's also a bad thing because you really get to like take a good look at yourself.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
I don't think it's a bad thing. It's just uncomfortable.
So yeah, it's a tough thing.
Yeah.
It's good for you though.
It's good, but it's just hard to confront. Yep.
I think, yeah, in a way, it's an opportunity because that you're never gonna get again.
Yeah. I kind of went off on a tangent, but like the original question that you had was
how to be happy.
Right.
And I have some notes on this. I think, well, this is kind of my only note, but I think the number one step, and you can go from there because this kind of answers all your problems, is just to know who you are.
Oh yeah, self-awareness.
Know thyself. Yeah.
Know thyself.
That's the number one key to being happy, I think.
I don't know if it's necessarily the solution, but I think that's the important first step, because if you're not self-aware, then like where do you go from there?
Yeah, exactly. Like right now, I'm reading Catcher in the Rye. Have you read it?
I read part of it. I really want to finish it though.
I read it like in middle school. I didn't understand it. It's still a little bit odd. Like I don't know if you remember the premise of the book, but
not really.
It's just this teenager, this very troubled teenager, and he's just like narrating his life, and it doesn't make any like sense why the author is doing it. But one thing that it really showed me is that this dude has no idea who he is. And obviously there's a lot of conflict inside of his brain because like he's the one narrating the book. And you can see how much it affects you not knowing who you are.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And not knowing who you want, because nothing is answerable after that.
Exactly. That's the first step. You got to know what you want, and then you can figure out the means, or
like it's hard to do pretty much anything if you don't know what you want out of life. And
but I also feel like there's a misconception that like it stays constant for all of our lives. Like I feel like the reason a lot of people also, wait, big disclaimer before we continue, this is not advice, or this is not like a how-to or a self-help type of episode in any way. We're just discussing our feelings and our ideas, and if you disagree, then that's cool, that's great. Thought I'd get that out of the way. But what was I saying? Right. So I feel like a lot of the reason why people tend to be so scared of like finding or becoming self-aware is because they feel like they have to like confine themselves to this one definition and like stick with it forever. But you don't, because like what you want changes. Nothing's constant, and that's fine. If something makes you happy in the moment, then good. That's your self-awareness at the moment, and then you can confront that later if it changes.
Yeah.
But I think being self-aware of what you want like right now without worrying about whether it'll change or like whether that's like the real deal is important in taking your first steps.
That's a very good point. There's this other podcast I was listening to, and he kind of says the same thing, as in like a lot of people feel like there's this inner calling that they need to fulfill, but a lot of people don't have that.
And that's okay.
That's okay.
Yeah,
you're still a normal person, and it's really okay to like just go with the flow and find out what your passion is through experience. That's a beautiful thing.
Yeah, you do. And that was another thing, the book I was reading that I was talking about earlier. It talks about the same thing where it's like a lot of us, we feel pressured to have this big grand dream, like, oh, I'm gonna like publish this best-selling book. I'm gonna be a rock star. I'm gonna like be a famous wrestler. But the reason we feel so pressured to like have goals like that is because we're bombarded by success. The book was saying that like we are only ever presented by the media nowadays the like top or bottom 99.99%. So you either see the absolute like worst thing someone did, or you see like this kid who got accepted into all the Ivy Leagues, won like $1 million in scholarships and da. And so because we're constantly bombarded with so many people who are like in this like top rung of society, we feel pressure to do the same, when really it's like, is that actually what you want, or do you just think you should be there because everyone else you're presented is the same way? And it's partially the media's fault, but like, you know, we can block it out. Just
oh yeah, it's really hard to like separate your actual inner desires versus like
what you feel obligated to do.
Yeah, very much so. Like whether it's by like people around you or the media is a big one, because it's so like ingrained, or it's like a part of you almost, like
you just
all the media you
see it
consume.
the way the way society's set up right now, you can't avoid it.
Exactly. That was another thing that I want to talk about. Like it's very hard to actually be completely shut off. Like it feels like almost I need noise, some sort of noise, like all the time. That's not a good thing.
I agree. Yeah. And you were saying, we can just move on to that question. I know it's not like in your flow of questions, but you mentioned like phone use, right? And stuff.
Yeah.
So what do you think about that?
This is a big one because I feel like it's one of the like number one main obstacles from having the quote unquote perfect day, which does not exist. But if I
having
were
a good
to
day.
having a good day,
yeah.
I have some rules in place, but I said but because like I break them often.
Mm-hmm.
But like today, oh, I should tell you what the rule is. My rule is like from 8 to 12 a.m. and p.m. I don't use my phone.
Mm-hmm.
And it's actually a pretty good rule because it was pretty like dramatic. Well, okay. I still kind of use my phone for the same amount of time, but it was more productive.
Right.
Which I think is also okay. But I noticed that I was able to like control my phone usage more.
Mm-hmm.
Once I'd already disciplined myself to like not use it for that
for a period of time, for sure,
that day.
Mm-hmm.
And it was a very simple thing, but like it solved a lot at once.
Oh yeah, for sure, because then you don't have that to distract you and you can like focus on the things, because phones are literally made to be, or not phones necessarily, but like apps and like all the things on the phone are literally made to be addicting. Like you see, you press the home screen, bam, your wallpaper is bright, you have everything on one screen, like just right there for you. The app colors are bright, so you're like tempted to push on them. Then once you go in, there's like a bajillion things you can do, and it's just a rabbit hole, right? And we were mentioning like instant versus delayed gratification type stuff, right? This is instant gratification right here. When you click on the app,
very much,
you're like, oh, my attention is like here right now, and I'm enjoying this right now. But then you keep spending time on it, and you're like, there's a little empty little feeling in the back of your mind, like, what am I doing? This is wasting time, but I'm here, and I'm still here, and I'm still here. But see, yeah, I think disciplining yourself and kind of like putting it away for a little bit teaches you to just...
Makes you sound like a baby, but like...
We're all just apes with more sophisticated thoughts. I mean, that's literally human beings.
I don't think I've changed since like 5th grade.
Me too. It's okay.
At the core. No, I agree with all of that. Yeah, they're like designed to be addicting. But I think knowing that puts a lot of weight off your shoulders because
self-awareness.
Yeah, in the process of like trying to use your phone less, it helps to know that it's not all your fault.
Right.
And that like, yeah, it's not
all your
fault. Like,
but it is your decision whether to use it or not.
Yeah, you can control yourself. I mean, it's hard to find a balance between like cold turkey and like 24/7.
Yeah.
But trial and error.
Yeah, just whatever works for you.
Because there are a lot of things I love on my phone.
Like my meditation app. And Animal Crossing. Oh. But yeah.
Yeah, I don't think I do anything super unproductive on my phone. It's just the amount of time that I'm on it.
Right. It takes away time you could have used for other things, and then that makes you feel guilty.
Yeah, I don't like seeing that notification every Sunday about how much I use my phone.
Oh my god, for real. They'll be like, you went down 11%, 9 hours and 45 minutes on average. And I'm like, that was down?
No, mine's just going up, so I don't know.
Aww. Mine's going down, but it's not very good progress. They're like, you used your phone for 8 hours. That's 10% less than last week. And I'm like, oh. Yeah, there's no justification for that. It's just bad.
It's a very weird thing, because you can say it over and over again that like you want to stop.
But then you don't.
It's easier said than done.
This is a bright little rainbow that catches our primate brains.
Yeah, there's probably some way to like take advantage of those same instincts, but like use your phone less. But I think quarantine has helped me go on my phone less, even though I'm going on it more, because I would be in school for most of the time that I'm using my phone.
I think part of it's more is because now we have like our assignments and stuff online.
Yeah.
Versus before it was just for Instagram.
It's so hard because like normally my laptop is only for like
work.
Playing.
Oh, playing. Okay.
Yeah.
Wait.
Yeah, no, I do most of my work like in person, and then my laptop, it only really like plays music. And so right now it's just weird to take this thing that like is really usually just for fun. Yeah. And I've heard a lot about how like it's hard for your brains to like
make the switch too.
Yeah. And so I'll just be working, but I'll also be like chatting with strangers on a live stream.
Right.
Which is supposed to help me study, but
lo and behold,
I find ways to procrastinate. Fridays are bad.
Okay. So.
I wanted to talk a bit about MBTI.
Yes. Okay.
Because I feel like...
Wait, hold up. For those of y'all who don't know, MBTI stands for Myers-Briggs. I don't know what the TI is, but it's a personality test. There's 16 types. It's a combination of letters. It assesses whether you're introverted, extroverted, like how you cope with problems, how you learn, how you make judgments and decisions, and stuff like that. You could take it for free online if you want. But yeah, that's what it is. Go ahead. Proceed.
I feel like it's helped me get to know myself a bit more.
Oh yeah, for sure.
So, yeah, like in terms of a lot of things. They're like crazy descriptive. You get like a
full essay about yourself.
Yeah, it's pretty crazy stuff.
Yeah.
But I mean, and then there's like YouTube rabbit holes you can go down for each personality type, and I mean, I think they're accurate. Like, there's probably not, but there may be some like 30-year-old white guy who has like a psychology major shaking his head right now.
No,
but
this is wrong.
If it helps,
works
then
for
it
me.
helps. But
Yeah, it
also,
works.
in a way, like you don't want to put yourself in a box.
Oh yeah, for sure.
And be like, this is what I am, like, forever. So
yeah, it's only part of your identity. It just kind of
yeah,
gives you, like, for me personally, I'm an ENFP. That's my type, right? I never really associated myself with like idealism, but that's like one of the defining traits of that personality type. And I think it's only after taking the test and reading that I was like, wait, that is true, and that is a problem that I should probably work on. So going off of the self-awareness that we mentioned earlier, yeah, that was definitely one thing where when I was reading about my personality type, I was like, huh, that's interesting. And yes, I agree. I definitely like that, but I never went out of my way to call myself an idealist. But now I know, and I'm working on using my brain a little bit more.
Yeah, there are a lot of things that like I didn't necessarily not know, but like I never put into words in my brain. Like, and I don't think I ever would. It would just be sort of kind of like a foggy thing. But then once you see it on paper, like written up for you, that like they had this thing about how you work best or something. It was something very specific about like a workplace environment, and it really felt true. And so yeah. What?
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think that's one thing that kind of ties into the whole self-awareness thing we were getting at earlier, where it's like, I need to know myself, but like how? And I found like, I used to obsessively take like personality tests over the course of middle school and like even the beginning of high school.
BuzzFeed.
BuzzFeed, no, those don't count.
What type of cake are you?
I'm a chocolate mousse cake. That's fascinating. Let me improve myself based on this. No, but like these types of personality tests, I used to be like super, super into them. And it just helps you to get to know yourself a little bit better, and then you can kind of see, you know, what parts you want to work on. Whether you think it's true to start with, it's just a good place to start in terms of like seeing some value, seeing some like traits, and then seeing like whether you identify them with them, whether you want to identify with them or not. And so I found it helpful. I know a lot of people critique personality tests, but it works for some, doesn't work for some, whatever.
Yeah, I think it can only benefit you.
All right. What next?
I don't know. Was there anything that like you feel like elaborating on?
Okay, well, as I said, I read The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F yesterday, and I have a lot of pointers from that. If I could go on my phone's notes.
Okay.
The book was really like thorough. If you haven't read it, I would 100% suggest reading it. And this is coming from someone who thinks self-help books are the plague. It was very honest. It wasn't shallow or surface level at all, and it kind of puts you in the face of a lot of like really uncomfortable truths. But it's good. I really liked it. Here, let me scroll through some of my notes from the book. Yes, you get a great break. In front of the mic. ASMR. Okay. So one of the things that the book highlighted was the fact that pleasure and success and this kind of stuff, they're not destinations, they're simply byproducts. And I think in terms of fulfillment, since we're on this topic, a lot of us spend or some people spend like their entire life looking for pleasure and success, but that's not, it's not a destination. That's like subjective. Yeah, exactly. Like there's an example in the book where shoot. Let me find the name so I know who exactly I'm referring to. Megadeth, that's what it was called. Okay. So there is an example in the book about one of the members of Megadeth, a heavy metal band from the 1980s, 1990s, that time period. But they were talking about one of the members and how he was kicked out of another band early on in their career, right as they were getting signed with a record label, right? And he was super like upset about that, and he made it his life's objective just to like spite them. And like whatever he would do, he would make it his band, his new band, more successful, more like famous, more well known than these people. And he didn't do that because that other band was Metallica. And so both bands were very successful, but in an interview later in his life, I'm trying to figure out what was the guy's name, because I'm not into death metal, and I know someone's going to be like, you don't know the Megadeth members? And I'll be like, no, I don't. Let's see. Dave Mustaine, that's the guy. Okay, so Dave Mustaine, later in his career, he was giving an interview, and he was like, I know I've sold like 25 million albums worldwide, and like I'm super successful, but I still consider myself a failure because Metallica is more famous than me.
That's like my biggest fear right there. Because that's just a sad sentence.
Shouldn't be the destination. His destination was success. It was being better than Metallica. And he was successful, but like he didn't think so. And that's the whole point. Like pleasure and success, they're not destinations because you're never going to attain that. You're never going to, like, once you get $1 million, you're going to be like, okay, but this guy has 2 million. I want 2 million now. So those are just byproducts, and you should enjoy them as they come, but that's not the goal. So that was one thing from the book that I thought was, it's fairly straightforward, but a lot of us overlook it anyways. We're like, oh, I want this and this and this. But like, that'll happen as long as you enjoy the process of working towards it.
Yeah, that makes me feel a little guilty because I don't think about what I have done or what I have already a lot.
Keep going.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Which I think is like ingrained in our biology, like to always look ahead. But yeah, I tried keeping a gratitude journal, but it didn't really help.
Oh no.
Because every day would just be like, what am I grateful for? Tomorrow. And that's already unhealthy. So, or it would be, I don't know, it would be very hard. Maybe I should keep a gratitude journal.
I think one thing I have tried keeping a gratitude journal or like writing gratitude statements, sentences, I don't know, writing something I'm grateful for every day. I've tried that in the past, and I find the further we regress into quarantine, the more illiterate I become. By the end, I'm going to be making like grunts and noises, and that's going to be my communication.
I'm going to forget how sentences
work. For real. I've already made so many typos in like text conversations. It's terrible. Anyways, gratitude journals. I think one common mistake a lot of people make, which is very bold of me to say as like not even an adult, but I think we're all very shallow about it. Like I know even when I first started out, I would do like very cliche things like I'm grateful for my health and I am grateful to have food and water. Don't get me wrong. Those are things we shouldn't take for granted, and those are things to be grateful for. But we kind of write it down without giving it much thought. It's like, oh, I'm grateful for food. True. I'm going to eat tomorrow. This doesn't mean anything to me, right?
Actually,
so
I have it here. Yeah, go on.
Tried making a conscious effort to like write things down that are not as generic, that I like genuinely don't take for granted. Not to say I do take like food and water and like shelter and basic stuff, quote unquote, for granted, but like I'd be like, I'm grateful for the opportunities and tools I have to achieve. Like I remember the day the first podcast episode went up, I was like, I'm grateful that I have the necessary tools to make this happen, because not everyone does, and I'm lucky I have these earbuds and my laptop and like an editing software, because that's something a lot of people don't have. So I was like, okay, that's something I'm grateful for. That's not
a good one,
quote unquote generic, or like that I don't give much thought to.
Yeah, you actually feel grateful for it.
Yes.
Yeah, I'm seeing some of mine. Yeah, I was doing a pretty good job. I don't know. But I guess I just wasn't feeling any different.
Right.
On paper, it looks like it may have been helping, but it wasn't really. But maybe I didn't do it for long enough. I did it for like a month. But I was very inconsistent.
That's a long time. I think it was more consistent than I was.
Oh, no, but it's like barely filled out. Like,
oh.
I did like maybe like 10 pages in the month. Yeah, right now I don't have a journal because like a journal because I ran out. And it's been kind of tough because when I'm like really feeling something, I have nowhere to put it.
That's why I just hoard journals. I have too many.
Yeah,
drive by. I can disinfect one and give it to you.
I have some, but I don't know. I really like my last one, but I'm gonna have to just face the fact that like it'll be a downgrade no matter what. Anyways.
Well, yeah. Another thing from the book that I kind of thought was interesting, they were saying in terms of fulfillment, like, and this goes off of self-awareness. It brought up the same idea, but they were saying one of the biggest contributors to like an unfulfilled life or like feeling like you're a failure is having bad values. And so I thought that was super interesting because it was one of those things that I kind of acknowledged in the back of my mind, but I never really had put in words for me. They're saying here, let me find that note. I took so many notes. Jesus Christ, this is huge. Okay, so yeah, basically they said that good values are reality-based, socially constructive, and immediate and controllable. And those are kind of the criteria for good values. So you look at good values, and I think the ones I came up with after yesterday were compassion, creativity, and progress as like the three things I want to focus on right now. And they're saying like bad values are, you know, trying to be better than someone else or like trying to always be happy. And they mentioned that's what's wrong with most self-help books. They're trying to find some like magic formula to make you feel perpetually happy. But like negative emotions exist, and that's not a good value to have because you can't control that. You can't control what makes you sad. Like if someone dies, you're not going to be like, oh, I'm happy, this is fine, this is an opportunity to grow. And it's like, no, you're sad and it sucks, and that's fine.
Yeah.
Right? So, yeah, basically bad values are not reality-based, not socially constructive, and not immediate and controllable. Good values are also something you constantly have to work on. Like, you can't stop being compassionate. There's no, like, threshold for, okay, I'm officially compassionate. There's nowhere else to go from here.
Okay.
Versus like, if you want to be better than someone, you have your own metric for like what constitutes being better than someone, or like making more money or selling more albums.
Part of
whatever,
like
right?
never feeling better.
You one never feel better, and two, once you sell more albums, what now? Then you have to find like something new. So compassion, that's reality based, right? Like I can be empathetic with people, I can be kind to people. Immediate and controllable, yeah, totally. If I'm put in a situation where like I have to empathize with someone, it's up to me whether I want to close my mind off or like listen to them and like try and understand their point of view. And socially constructive, yes, I think compassion is socially constructive. Same with creativity and progress. You apply those three principles and yeah, they work because I constantly have to work for those. They follow the three criteria. And I thought that was interesting because like it's so simple. Like everyone's like, yeah, have good values, but we kind of underestimate the power of them because your values are what determine everything you do in your life. And as the book says, if they're not good, then like you're basing all of your decisions off of questionable morals, and
yeah,
that's not good.
I've never actually, besides like beyond the basic universal values, I think I've never actually tried to do that, so that's cool.
You should read the book. I liked it a lot.
Yeah, I want to.
It made me very uncomfortable, but like
I may find the Blink list.
You might, yeah. That if they have that would be good. Do you want to talk about failure?
Sure.
And we'll end off on a really, really, really morbid note. Contemplating mortality. That was another. These are two other things from the book that like we didn't really cover.
Cool. Okay.
But they're fun topics to discuss. Okay, so first, failure. What is your hot take?
Failure. I'm trying to think of what comes to mind. I don't have like things that are 100% a failure.
Mm-hmm.
They're not
Then
like
good. You have a healthy mindset.
yeah, maybe or maybe
We
yeah.
just
I
haven't
think
experienced enough. That's also valid.
yeah. I think that has a little bit to do with it. I mean, I used to when I was like little, like there would be moments where I was like, oh, that went completely wrong,
Fail.
and like
Right.
I can't go outside for a week. But now it's like that went a little bad, or like that could have been better, which I think it doesn't hurt equally as bad. Like every time I have a music performance, because that's a big
We both
moment
know that one.
where it's either like I did well or I did not so well. Like, okay, this is a good example. I'm thinking of a time right now where like it was recently too, so it's an accurate representation of, I guess, how I go about dealing with a failure. And there were good things about it, so I guess I try not to think of it as just like black and white, but
on the scale of good and bad,
good and bad is closer to bad. And well, the thing is, I don't realize until after it's happened, which is always funny, because in the moment it always feels the same, no matter what performance.
It's just performing.
No matter how good or bad it was, you just kind of fall into like this trance, and you're not here, and you don't know what just happened. It's like you black out for
real. No, this is like
2 minutes and 30 seconds. Yeah. And as maybe part of like doing well, like something that has to happen. But yeah, looking back and thinking about that performance, I maybe don't think about it at all. Maybe that's an option.
Eating that part of our brain.
Because I haven't actually like reflected on it. So maybe there you go. Maybe that's how I deal with progress. I don't.
No, but like, okay, hypothetically, if we were to.
If I were to like fall flat on my face, it would be tough. Like a really bad performance.
I have a story. May I? Okay,
yes.
in terms of like failure, okay, basically I'll get at what the book was getting at, and then I'll use my example to kind of support it. But in terms of failure, the book says that failure is inevitable. That's obvious. But one of the defining things about failure is that most people don't even go for things because they fear failure, right? Why do we care about failing? Why do we care about failing? Because we want to be that 99 percentile that the media shows us, and we want to be this like dashing success. It doesn't make sense because like you listen to interviews, you listen to like, or you read biographies, whatever. Everyone in the 99 percentile says that the reason they're in the 99 percentile is because they failed a bajillion times and one thing worked. Life is entirely trial and error. Why are we so scared of failing? Like, we're gonna fail, and that's okay, is what I was trying to get at. So with like my performance, I think that's like a very, very like simple, oversimplified example, but like we can go with it for conversation's sake. I had this performance where it was, I won't say the name of it to protect my privacy, but you know what I'm talking about. Basically, it's a performance I had been really wanting to do since like I was super little, and it was like a big citywide singing competition, and I was very excited for it. But then the time got around, and once I was on stage, I just froze. Like I was so scared. I didn't have a good time. I was nervous the whole way through. That showed in my singing. Like it was just not pleasant. And I remember afterwards we went for dinner, and while I was proud of myself for like actually making it there and like performing to start with, I went in the bathroom and I just like cried. Like I just let loose. And to me that was a failure because I was like, wow, I worked my butt off for this. This was a goal I had for like God knows how long, and I just bombed it. In hindsight, like that's okay. It was bound to happen. I can't perform well now unless I screw up a bajillion times. And then that like one point where I make it and it's like, it matters. If I do well, then great. That's because I made every possible mistake I could have in the past.
And also, that reminded me of kind of thinking about it as just progress, like you said. One of your values. Like if you have done better since that performance, you've had better performances. So, I mean, if you're going to do good all the time, you're not
learning anything.
Progress. Yeah.
Exactly.
And it's good to have something bad to compare good things to. That makes the good things feel better.
And that's the thing, like failure it causes problems, right? When you fail, when you hit rock bottom, when you mess up, like there's a negative emotion attached to that. But because of that, you have something to work towards. Like, okay, now I'm going to make this next performance better. I'm going to relax. I'm going to breathe before I get up. You need it. And then on the contemplating mortality half of it, woo, fun stuff. Basically, the book said we're all going to die. Duh, right?
Yeah.
But you look at any and everything that exists nowadays, and everything ever invented is because we try to avoid our mortality. You look at government systems, you look at religion, you look at anything like that, that is some guy trying to immortalize his existence by creating something like that'll precede their lifetime. Like everyone knows they're going to die, right? But the book talked about, what is it, an immortality project is what they called it, right? So you try to create your conceptual self outside of your physical self, and that's your identity. So let's say I want to start a religion, right? That religion is a collection of my ideas and my values and the things I believe are right? And I'm going to go around trying to convince as many people that, hey, this is word, this is what I say is right? Gospel. But in the end, I'm just some like person trying to make my ideas live longer than I will. That's not to say religion is bad or anything. It's just like someone was trying to immortalize their ideas and their existence beyond their physical self, right?
Yeah, that's one way to look at it.
And that's what gives us fulfillment, is essentially what the book was trying to get at. Like, we like working towards things that are bigger than ourselves because we know we're not going to last forever. So might as well do something that like
that is
makes
very
us
much what it is.
Feel like we're contributing something.
Yeah.
After us. So do whatever you want, y'all.
Do whatever you want.
You only have one shot, as far as we know.
And keep an open mind.
Yes. All right. Now that we've gotten a little too deep in the conversation, every last 10 minutes of the podcast, we do a thing where it's called Deep Questions with Friends. Just Google some deep questions on your phone, and this is like rapid-fire existential crisis questions.
Oh my God. Okay, yeah. We have to move you a bit.
You can't think, just like answer.
So, let me see. How does this work? Deep questions?
Yeah, just deep questions.
On the web. Okay, deep questions. Okay, I see a website called... Okay, pick a number. From 1 through 200. Dang.
47.
Okay. Oh, this isn't deep.
Oh boy, okay. Well, that's okay.
Okay. You start so I know where we are in the deep.
Okay.
Yeah.
Do you think humans are doing more harm than good to the planet?
I think that's hard to answer as a human.
Rapid fire. Don't think, just say.
Oh. I'm gonna look at this. I think we're doing more harm than good.
I think so too.
Yeah, I think it would be kind of weird to say we're doing better.
No, we literally caused the 6th mass extinction, so, I mean, in the grand scheme of things, we're not doing too great.
You can't ignore that.
Yeah. All right, your turn.
Do you think that morals are, like, universal or relative?
Oh, okay. I think basic values are universal. I mean, you look at all cultures, and across all cultures, they're saying, treat others with respect. Don't kill people. Like, basic stuff is pretty universal. I don't think anyone would condone murder or like being mean to someone else, right? But I think once you get into like the values we were talking about throughout this episode, where it was like compassion, creativity, that's when it starts becoming subjective, because like not everyone's going to be like, I want to be the most creative person on the planet. Like, okay.
Yeah, I think it also may be just like we all believe the same things, but the way we
live it out is a little different. Yeah. Okay, would you rather be called vain or insecure?
Vain.
Why?
Why? Well, okay, this is what people call me, right?
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people call people vain when those people are really just like comfortable with themselves.
Mm-hmm. So like misconstruing them.
Yes.
That's interesting. I don't know. I feel like for me, I thought vain at first, and then I thought insecure, because I was like, generally when people call someone insecure, they're like projecting their own insecurities onto them. Like I will never be like, oh, that person's so insecure, and like not feel irked by something they're doing myself when it's like my fault. Am I making sense? You know? I don't know.
No, that's very true.
I'm fine with either though, because honestly, either point to me being comfortable with myself and someone else not being comfortable with me. So like, whatever.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. Oh, I thought of one that my psych teacher asked this in the beginning of the year.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's gonna be kind of interesting. But he described the scenario where if you could live in like paradise for 5 years, and you're completely relaxed, you're comfortable, and you're eating like your favorite food, you're having the best time. But after the 5 years are over, you'd have to forget everything that happened. Would you do it?
Yeah. Yeah. I mean,
It was
why
hard
not?
for me.
Right? I mean, like, so basically the premise is that you have 5 years to just do whatever, live a perfect life, and then just like erase it all at the end.
Yeah.
I mean, if I don't remember it, then like fine, and I'll be happy in the present too. So I mean, I see a win-win.
That's true. But also, it's 5 years gone from your life.
70 and 75 aren't going to make too much of a difference to me.
Okay, well, I said no. But I don't know. I mean, it kind of reminded me of right now because quarantine is kind of just like being able to do whatever I want without going outside. But
right.
I'd like to remember it. Okay, your question.
My question. Let's see. I'm not sure actually. I'm searching up stuff, but they're not like deep enough. They're just like, if you had $20, what would your ideal date be?
Favorite movies.
No. What's the one piece of advice you'd give to others about life?
Wow.
Like only one thing that you believe deep in your soul.
It's a lot of pressure. It's like one. What about you? Man, I suck at rapid fire.
Like, no, you're good. Mine would bias your response. So.
Yeah. That's kind of the whole point. Because I'm drawing a blank. I think maybe just to find balance. I think that's
find balance?
Yeah. That's a good way to maybe like summarize how I try to live life. Yeah.
Balance. That's good.
Yeah.
Do you want to hear mine, or do you want to ask me? Okay, I think my one piece of advice is it sounds super basic, but like, God, is it true? Just be yourself. Like,
that's a good one.
It's super basic. I was going to say like be genuine, but it kind of goes off the same thing. There's so many, I'm not like some like high achiever, scholar, go-getter type person that's like, okay, I got to chase this and plan this and do this. I'm just myself, and I just be genuine with people around me, and that's gotten me pretty decent places in life. So just be yourself.
That's a good piece of advice.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So, like,
life is too short not to be yourself.
Mm-hmm. Not everyone's gonna like you, but those who do will like you even more when you're not trying to be something else, you know? So
that's a good one.
Just vibe.
What's the best and worst, if you want, piece of advice you've ever received?
Best piece of advice I've ever received is stand up for yourself. Because, like, I feel like we take that. That's another one that sounds super generic, like, in words. But, like, once you actually put it in practice, it's hard to, like, do that sometimes.
Definitely.
Your beliefs are not always in everyone else's best interest, and they're going to fight you on that. And so, stick to your wits. Worst piece of advice I've received? This one's kind of funny coming from me because I'm like the token optimist in every situation, but like be positive or like always try to be happy. Like that's no. Sometimes things suck and you can't avoid it, and you shouldn't
gloss over like
like if I'm feeling grief or if I'm feeling upset about something, pushing it down and being like, no, I'm fine. It's just gonna make it even worse, right? So like deal with it.
Yeah.
And then get over it. Like, the faster you confront your negative emotions, the faster they'll be over. So just suck it up and deal with it. And then, like...
It's been a long time since I've seen Be Positive. Like, I follow a lot of, like, quote pages on Instagram. I haven't seen Be Positive in a long time. I think people are understanding that, like...
They're finally starting to see, no, that doesn't work.
Yeah, that's very superficial.
It is.
I can't...
Yeah. God, I hate that piece of advice. They're like... Be positive. Like, I'm not always going to... Listen, I'm going to be optimistic about every situation. I'm not going to be, like, whiny and complaining about everything that happens to me, but I'm not also going to be always happy, and I'm not going to disregard my negative emotions just because I want to look positive.
For sure. Yeah. It's... Yeah. I don't know about the best piece of advice ever, but, there's this Tabitha Brown video I was watching.
Queen, I love her. You introduced me to her. Thank you for that. She's the most wholesome person on the internet. There's no debate.
She's becoming more popular. It's nice.
I know. It's great.
She said something about not everyone is going to understand you or what you want or your goals. And it was a small thing, but I still remember it, so it felt really nice that that I got that reminder, because sometimes, like, especially right now, the only people I see are my family, and a lot of the time they don't really like get what I'm doing or trying to do.
It's just rebellious teenagers. No one understands me.
And so
no, but it's valid.
Yeah, that felt nice to see that, like, I don't have to make them understand. Yeah. So that felt good. I can't think of the worst piece of advice. Maybe the opposite, like, to just try to conform to what everyone wants. I don't know when the last time I heard that was, but, like...
Oh, like the do your duty type stuff? I think there's a balance. Like, you shouldn't completely disregard your duties, but you shouldn't be, like, sacrificing yourself for them either.
Exactly.
Yeah. My last question, how do we know if we're doing the right thing?
That's a good one. The easy answer is just, like, if it feels right, but then, like, if it feels right to murder someone.
No.
That's dark.
It's, like, morally
Then the baby answer is, like, if it feels right, and it also is making the golden rule. But it's so much more complex than that also.
My hot take is that we don't, and that's okay.
Maybe we don't, yeah. Maybe, I think it's trial and error. It takes a repetitive effort to see really what was the question?
Right. How do we know if we're doing the right thing?
Yeah. You just kind of have to test the waters.
Yeah.
Like, you try one thing, whether it's, like, by yourself or, like, with other people. Like...
Does it feel right? If it doesn't, move on.
Yeah. Exactly. Trial and error.
There is a paragraph in Damien, that is my favorite book, as you know. Yeah. So there's a paragraph that says exactly that. I don't remember exactly what it says, and currently I've lost the book. So I was kind of saying exactly that. Like, there's a voice in our head that always knows exactly what's right for us, It's our choice whether we want to listen to it or not. And some people, they do, and they, feel quote unquote fulfilled or whatever. And then there's those who kind of like lose touch with it, and it's to the point that they can't hear it anymore, and there's just a sense of dissatisfaction down there. So right is, in my opinion, subjective, very subjective. It's just
listening to the voice.
Whether we want to listen to what we feel is right for us or not, and go off of that. No one knows what they're doing. Wing it.
It's very true. I kind of like, I think the Tabitha Brown quote made me feel so good because it kind of reminded me also of another thing. I don't know where I saw it or read it, but like the idea that no one is like you, which is, it sounds very simple when you say it out loud, but like a lot of the time you try to conform to a certain like ideal or like live up to certain expectations or try to emulate someone when it's kind of cool that like you're creating your own mold in the process.
Exactly.
Yeah.
There's no formula. Everything I'm saying sounds so generic and cheesy, but like when you think it through, it makes sense.
Yeah, it sounds generic. Yeah, but it's all really like...
It makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's probably why it's a cliche, because it's worked.
Yeah, exactly. What's your last
cliches
question?
Become cliches. What was a place that transformed your ideas, thinking, perspective, or made you come alive in a new way?
Oh God, I like this one. I was actually thinking about this last night. It's like a super underwhelming response. I don't know. We went on vacation. I told you about this, but like listeners don't know. My family and I, we went on vacation to Pensacola, and we stayed like along the beach for a week in like the middle of December, and it was the best experience of my life. And everyone's probably like, son of a, because it was like a consistent 30 to 40 degrees. It was freezing cold. No one was there. Nothing to do. It was the best experience of my life. There's just something about sitting there in freezing cold, unable to like play or like do anything, and just like watching. That was so calming, and like, I don't know, it was beautiful. Beaches in the winter are underrated. Like, it was cloudy, it was cold. It seemed absolutely unideal, but that was the best time I've ever had at a beach.
Wow.
So
I've never been to a beach in the cold, actually, so.
You should try it. Basically, that beach was the best experience of my life. I was in a really, really like bad place when we went, but I remember after going back, I don't know, it's not like everything was solved or whatever, but it was just a nice little safe space that
in your memory.
Yeah, that I just go to every once in a while. Again, everything I'm saying sounds so generic and cliche, but it was a really nice vacation. Y'all should go to Pensacola in the middle of the winter. Happy vacationing.
The way that it's special for you, it won't be special for anyone else.
That's also
to
true.
find our own Pensacola in the winter. But it's nice that you have like just a memory where nothing went wrong.
Oh yeah. Well, I don't know if nothing went wrong. As I said, I was not very happy during that vacation, but
it's like
it was just calm. It was chill. Do you have anything like that?
I do have like small ones. I can't think of really big ones. The first thing that came to my mind, because I've been thinking about it a lot recently, just like you said, I don't remember thinking about it a lot because it comes up and I'm like, oh, right. And
this was a thing, right?
It feels nice. Even still, it's this memory of being on the train in India. And just sitting there, and I was like on my iPad listening to music. I was writing some things, but like I lost them forever. I wish I had them. But
yeah,
I was on like the top bunk. It was just a peaceful
moment. Good time.
Yeah, but the thing
I have a poem from that Pensacola trip too, and I read it last night, and I was like, this is objectively bad literature, but
you were inspired enough to write, so
yeah, exactly. It was like a whole sonnet.
Yeah, I wrote like a poem. I emailed it to myself and then I lost it for
Aww.
Yeah, it probably would have been bad but
Okay, it was your
like,
feelings.
yeah, that's true. I think it's a good place to end.
Yeah, I think so too. All right. I'll read the outro and then we can hang up. Again, what has started in quarantine has now come to a non-temporary end. Hopefully you guys all enjoyed our impromptu speed round question session at the end. Again, we would like to credit a lot of websites this time. What websites did you use? I used Mantelligence again. It's a funny website name.
I don't know. I used Journal Smarter, and what else is purple? Budding Optimist.
Literacy. It's okay. We're all losing in quarantine.
Nade.com. TheScienceOfPeople.com. I didn't even, I was just like scrolling through them, but they were there.
Cool beans. All right. So thank you to those websites for our questions again. We didn't really have any questions asked to our listeners this time, but thank you again for listening, and thank you to our brains for coming up with these lovely ideas and conversation topics. Yay. Oh, also big thank you to The Subtle Art of Not Giving an F by Mark Manson. That was a great book, and I based a lot of my conversation off of it. So, yeah.
Philosophize This, the podcast.
Many things to thank this time. But yes, thank you to all those sources for sparking conversation this podcast. We hope that you enjoyed this, and we hope that you'll continue to join us every Tuesday for more advice and shenanigans. Until next time, this is the Armbridge Podcast. Goodbye.